themselves the elite.
Better than you, and you know it.
If not us, who? And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
They want an alternative. They want something different to watch.
Change the world. We are going to change the whole universe!
They saw what wrestling was and realized what it could be.
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 6th time, it's Monday morning. You know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
Oh man, I thought for so long that we were going to have sort of a short week where we could kind of kick back a little bit. And then they told, I was like, wow, we're not going to have any Double or Nothing. And they're like, no, it's dropping at 6 p.m. on Sunday. So we had to move everything back in order to get it right. But I'm glad that we did because holy crap, we've got some stuff to talk about, man.
One hell of a promo. Yeah, it was really funny when we were messaging yesterday. It's like, yeah, we'll do it early tomorrow morning. It's no big deal. It's going to be like a 30-minute episode. Nothing's happened. And then it's like, okay, shit, yeah. Whoa. To be a 4-minute video, just whoa.
At least they announced it because there's a very real possibility they could have just not announced it and just released it, which they've done all the time, right? And then we would have recorded the podcast, and then at 6 p.m. they would have put up the episode. It would have been like, fuck.
Yeah.
Wait a week to talk about this. We have one job,
I mean, they've been real good about keeping to a schedule, though.
Yeah.
This one is just the past two. I mean, the last one made sense. They had to. It was purely contractual. This one is odd that they had to wait.
Yeah, it's
so long
strange
to
that they
release
had
it.
to push this one back because it's supposed to go up Thursday, Friday, something like that. Friday usually.
Yeah, usually Friday mornings is when they've been popping online.
And then
like
this
that.
one didn't come out till 6 p.m. on Sunday. And when we get to it, which we will get to it, it's our last thing on the docket today. There really doesn't appear to be a reason why it would have taken that long, from a production standpoint or anything, unless they literally taped this thing yesterday.
Which is entirely likely.
Sure.
It's completely possible.
It's possible.
Only thing I can think of is I know part of the group was at the NFL draft in Jacksonville. They had, because they do, each team does like a little event kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know Cody and Brandy were there and they were doing like Q&A and some stuff. Mm-hmm. So they may have filmed it then and had to edit it quickly.
The world has changed slightly since the last time we talked. Avengers Endgame is out. We're going to stay off of that subject for this podcast, but hoo-wee, get out and see
All
it before somebody else spoils it for you, because oh my lord.
Just go see this movie. If you're interested in comic book movies at all, go see this movie.
YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. That's where you can listen to us every week as we talk about AEW and focus on this new revolution in pro wrestling here on Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite if you want to be a part of the community. But if you really want to get in touch, if you really want to talk shop with us about AEW every single day, whenever you want, that's tinyurl.com/AEW pod, tinyurl.com/AEW pod to join our Discord community and talk about AEW. You can talk about other wrestling there. We've got an off-topic channel. It's a great place to just hang out with the guys and talk about AEW. And we're having a blast over there. But we got to get into a lot of what we're talking about here this week because we have a fair amount of news stories, none of them really super earth-shaking. But there have been some movements forward on a couple of fronts here. I want to start with Being the Elite, episode 148, entitled Dead Friend 1. Episode opens with a great segment between Kenny Omega, who is in the midst of a mental breakdown over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm gonna go after stuff like this episode has been the absolute worst on audio.
Oh yeah, there were a couple ones where I was like, wow.
I mean, this one I was watching it on my PC. I wasn't using my headphones. I was just using my speakers, and I had volume max, and I couldn't hear a fucking thing they said.
Wow.
It was so.
I didn't have as much issue with it on my end, but I'm not chalking it up to your equipment. It might have been a number of different factors. Kenny has summoned Cody because he saw last week's episode. It's really interesting how they play with what this thing is, right? Like in some ways, it seems like they don't know what happens on during the show, but then when it's convenient, they do. They can watch the show.
Yeah, and then there's also the whole, like, oh, yeah, I don't know anything that Cody's doing. I had to see it on YouTube. I'm not a senior executive vice president in this company.
Anyway, so Kenny has seen last week's episode of Being the Elite and fears that his pick for #the librarian may be in jeopardy, as Matt and Cede seem to be leaning towards Pretty Peter Avalon, as seen on last week's episode. Rhodes says, "Give me a break. You can't have a fucking man do the librarian," which I thought was great. This very male against sexist idea that only a woman could play the librarian if you're gonna pull it off correctly, right? I love that.
Oh, man,
Kenny says, "Go ahead."
That was so funny. It got to the point after a minute and a half, and I was like, guys, you guys need to stop talking.
Kenny offers that a better gimmick for Peter Avalon would be Millimeter Peter Avalon.
That was fucked up, dude.
They make some jokes about AEW being inmates running the asylum, WCW 2.0, etc. I love that they're leaning into these jokes, especially with some of the news we'll talk about later. They feed into these trolls, and the trolls are going, yeah, they're right. They're not. The two resolve to make a pact to always have each other's backs against the other EVPs and to officially hire Leva Bates to play the librarian. Leva Bates, perhaps most known for a short run in NXT with Enzo and Cass as the character Blue Pants, but known throughout the indie space as sort of a cosplayer gimmick type thing. She's good in the ring, and I think she's a fine choice for the librarian, though not nearly as funny as Pretty Peter Avalon as a choice.
I'd have to agree with that. It'd be a lot more interesting with having Peter Avalon, but I think that doing both is funny as shit.
Cut to the title sequence. When we return from the title sequence, we go straight into Cede and Matt offering Pretty Peter Avalon the role of the librarian. He immediately jumps at the opportunity, pausing only briefly to ask after the $1 million that Cody had mentioned. Matt and Cede are quick to adjust his expectations, but it doesn't seem like a deal breaker for Peter. Pretty Peter Avalon is also the librarian.
Cody's not the money guy, man. Stop thinking this.
Cody doesn't know what he's talking about. I love he's like, Cody mentioned $1 million, and Matt's immediately like, absolutely not. And then this, of course, exploded on Twitter as well with Kenny sharing one photo with Leva being the librarian and Matt sharing the other one and being like, what the fuck? And wherever they lead with this, whether this leads to them being a tag team or them fighting for the librarian gimmick or whatever, I think it's a great idea.
I agree.
They have these two people fighting over this fucking stupid gimmick that like nobody should want, but it's have the gimmick or not be in the company for them right now. So they have to fight to be the librarian, right?
I'm kind of waiting for Flip Gordon to throw his name in the hat.
The next segment features Sammy Guevara returning home to visit his cute mom. They briefly exchange pleasantries as Sammy collects his mail and presents his cute mom with the new Sammy G t-shirt. Sammy leaves just before his cute mom launches into a paragraph about how much she hates his guts, which I thought was great.
You'd think that like his mom was just MJF and drag the way she talked, man. It was fucking harsh.
And then there's a cool cut throughout this episode. They're sort of how they're running into each segment is getting smarter and smarter as time goes on. We go from this segment into like sort of zooming out, and Nick is editing the episode, and that's how we move into the next scene. And they do this a couple of times with different ways throughout the episode, and I think it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell that even though this is their like still homegrown project, that they are talking to the people that are doing the editing for like the Road to Double or Nothing and other stuff to get hints and tips.
Or just more experience. I mean, they've been doing this a long time, and he is still editing this shit in fucking iMovie, which is hilarious. But
well, yeah, you can't use anything else when you're just using iPhones. You gotta be able to run that edit through on your iPad when you're on the plane, buddy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. Nick initially hearing this scene, he feels bad for Sammy G. He tries to tell Matt, and Matt is immediately like, I don't care about Sammy G. Which is great to just add insult to injury on that one. Matt finally tells Nick about the call from Chris Jericho that they received weeks back. Nick laughs and tells Matt about receiving an almost identical call about trying to sow a seed of destruction between the two of them, right? And then they just sort of sweep it under the rug. Like, yeah, it's Chris. He's an insane person.
Yeah, he is. Nailed it.
But Matt expresses some worry that their schedule, which has been relaxed of late, may be to their detriment in their match against the Lucha Brothers at Double or Nothing. Nick agrees that it's time to put themselves back on the map, and then says, speaking of tag teams, you got to check these guys out. I think they're the future. Matt says, is these the guys you were talking about last week? And then we cut to a hype video for Private Party, a tag team I'm not super familiar with, but apparently work all around in my circle, because this hype video featured footage from a bunch of Northeast promotions, including Limitless Wrestling, Wrestling Has a Tomorrow, HOG, ESW, and more were all like featured in this video against tag teams that I see wrestle all the time. I just haven't seen these Private Party guys. Private Party is All Elite, which is cool. From the video, it looked like they have a lot of really cool tag team moves and kind of an interesting, believable gimmick. So I'll go with it, man. I think I'm excited to see where they can go with these guys.
Yeah, they look pretty fun. I mean, I've never heard of them, but like you said, the video that little montage that was presented, it looks a lot of fun. So I'm down.
Yeah. The next segment is Joey's segment. The Joey segments have been fun some weeks, and some weeks they're like the weakest part of the show. And this week is no exception to that rule. He's best friends with a Candace toy who is helping him learn to protect himself. It's kind of dumb.
Super creepy.
Yeah, I thought I didn't think it was particularly well shot or edited or written. I thought it was kind of rough. Next scene, even for this show.
Yeah, even for this show.
Next scene, Kenny is sitting back in head-to-toe AEW gear. I couldn't figure out what he was calling on, but it was either a tablet.
It's an iPad mini.
Okay. At first, I thought it was one of those fucking obnoxious folding phones, right?
But, you can't get those yet.
but he doesn't. He's not a. I'm sure Kenny Omega could have one by now.
No, you literally can't. No, you can't get one.
Right, because they pushed them back, but they had review models out to influencers.
Yeah, and you can peel the screen off.
Yeah, pretty horrible. I did see that. It's fucking dumb. Like they thought that was gonna, like people weren't gonna. I don't understand that.
I don't understand it all either. The whole thing is stupid, and it's like $2,000, and it's like, ugh.
It also kind of seems like an invention in search of a problem. You know what I mean?
100%. It's like, hey, you guys remember flip phones from the 90s and the early 2000s? Here's a smart flip phone that's massive.
But, yeah, I guess the idea is that you can have a giant screen in a smaller form factor for travel, but, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think phone screens are too small as a rule. I think once you get to the 5.5 inches or whatever it is that a lot of the bigger phones are at now, like, that's kind of good. I don't need twice that in a folding capacity. It just seems...
Samsung has a real issue about, hey, you guys want bigger screens? Bigger screens? Make bigger screens? Come on, you want bigger screens? It's like, no, because the phone is bigger than my face now.
Yeah, I kind of want a battery that lasts more than 6 hours, though.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Or that your phone doesn't turn into a massive piece of shit after a year.
Yeah, like, I would be okay with my phone being twice as thick as it is if it lasted twice as long, battery.
Sure, I'm down for that.
But
yeah,
not.
he's actually just, for some reason, holding an iPad mini up to his face
which is equally douchey. I just want to say it's and is probably done for comedic effect because I'm sure he has a regular phone.
I hope to God he does. I don't want to see him trying to walk around in his tight pants that he wears everywhere and stick an iPad in his pocket.
He's calling an unknown party on the tablet. He is trying to acquire the jet from Top Gun. He says money is no object. For what reason? Assumingly Fighter Fest. He's trying to acquire this. And if they acquire one for Fighter Fest just to be used at Fighter Fest, it's fucking worth it. And especially if they just like know the guy who owns it and he lives in the area, right? Like
there isn't a guy that owns it. It's called the fucking Navy.
But the one from the movie though, you know what I mean?
Okay, fair, but it's pretty much, the fucking Air Force and the Navy. But either way, this whole segment is like a cocaine-fueled fever dream.
I hope that Fighter Fest is just filled with weird-ass shit like that, dude. Like
because Kenny organized it?
Right, like just stuff that makes no sense. Like, I hope that they get the airplane from Top Gun and Tom Cruise just to show up on camera for 5 seconds and then they cut to something else. Like, and then stuff that seems really, really expensive.
This random just table full of grilled cheese sandwiches.
I hope it's just wildly outrageous expensive seeming stuff and then like very clear, like, super budget versions of the things that they promised. I really hope that they've been running with it on the TV show, but I hope the actual event is more than just sort of a wrestling event at CEO. I hope that they have some of that humor involved in the thing, and with how much they're talking about it, I think they're gonna have some cool stuff planned. That's just very funny.
What's gonna be great though is like you get to this event and there is no jet from Top Gun, but there's a table and there's a model set up, and then there's a sign over it. It's like the F-14 from Top Gun.
Yeah,
model.
I would expect just a bunch of shit like that, dude. Just hopefully a lot of great, just ridiculous comedy stuff. Then we move to the SCU phone sketch, which is great. The conceit of the sketch is that when they call each other on the phone, they go SCU for a really long time when they're on the phone with each other. That's kind of the whole point. There's also a brief mention of an SCU all-night after party, which I assume is in Vegas after Double or Nothing. And they say that they got some sort of entertainment act to be involved, but they didn't reveal what it was. And I also haven't really seen much on this party at all. So,
yes, it's pretty. Everything about this is very low key. Or it could just be something like that's going to be the news for like the next 2 or 3 weeks.
It is
like,
kind of funny that if you listen to this sketch with headphones on, you can tell they're all like in the same house. Because you can hear it coming through the phone, but you can also kind of hear the bass notes, right, in another room, which is great.
because they're not far enough away from each other.
Right? They're not quite. They didn't have a guy outside or something like that. Like they're taping this all, which is funny. There's a cool lead out here again. After the phone call between SCU, Sky calls Matt Jackson. Matt ignores Sky's call, but then sees a voicemail from the bank regarding a number of insane purchases, courtesy of Kenny Omega. 50,000 beach balls and like a giant pool, like shit like that.
Like I said, man, cocaine-fueled fever dream.
Matt immediately calls Kenny. Kenny doesn't answer because he's too busy buying stupid shit. Matt then tries to call Nick, who doesn't answer, seemingly just to be a dick. Just doesn't answer the phone.
I don't want to talk
He's
to
just
you.
relaxing on a couch. He really could have taken the call. Matt then calls Hangman, who answers immediately, even though he's literally carrying a box into his new house. And I love this idea that he's like if he gets a call, he's picking it up because that's how bored he is. Matt says he hopes that the potato chip last week was worth it. He's coming down hard on Hangman Page. Which again is another reference to that they're able to watch what happens in these episodes.
I mean, that one could go either way.
Sure,
That
it
could
might be
be-
Matt who's watching.
Yeah, that could be. Oh yeah, Matt knew what happened in the episode, but it also is like Matt's the guy planting the cameras everywhere on Page and
Maybe.
fucking with him.
Hangman says he's moved houses to escape whoever's been watching him. Matt has this great line where he says, yeah, big deal. You had to move and uproot your family. Welcome to the club. That's what every single wrestler in this industry does these days. Then he says, I've got one last question for you, Hangman. And in his best Triple H voice, he says, are you full gear ready? Looks directly into the camera. He's like, huh, pal? Hangman says, no, I'm not full gear ready. He then hangs up the camera, and the image cuts to a security camera inside his brand new house. And it looks like Hangman almost notices it before we head to the final scene. Which is interesting. I'd like to see where they're going with this. I would think that it's not as obvious as it being Pac, and that it's something leading to whatever's happening after Pac, but
Yeah, it'd be cool if this was like a long con kind of thing that's leading to like Fight for the Fallen or something. That'd be way cooler than just paying it off at Double or Nothing with Pac. And I mean, it'd be fine that way, but it would just be so much cooler if this was a longer game that we're playing.
well, especially because I don't know why Pac would give a shit if he's full gear ready or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
because
Like,
it doesn't seem like Pac really gives a fuck at all, and just really just like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you whether you're ready or not.
Right.
Just prepare to die.
in the final scene, Nick says he's going to call his old British friend, likely referring to Marty Scurll. Nick makes the call, and we see the phone on the other end ringing unanswered. The caller ID reads only, Dead Friend 1. Which is great.
That's fucked up, though.
This is probably a hint to Marty Scurll. It's interesting that they keep him kind of a part of the storyline, despite the fact that he's still signed with ROH and NJPW for a while.
Yeah, which is odd. I mean, I see why Marty did it, because, you know, he didn't want to just be the tag-along guy. He wanted to try and do his own thing, but at the same time, I see that you can see that he's kind of, like, regretting that decision now.
But, like, I completely understand the logic. It's not even don't be the tag-along. It's Marty still has places to go in those companies. Cody and the Bucks didn't.
Yeah, that's fair. That they had done literally everything, so it wasn't really anything else that they could do in New Japan or for the Bucks especially, really anywhere. They had done everything.
So he's going to have a buy-in to AEW either way.
Yeah.
Why
it's
do
just
it
when
now?
He's ready to do it.
Why do it now when he's not I guess the NJPW equivalent of a mid-card guy, certainly higher in ROH, when he could wait and do it when he's as big as Cody and the Bucks were when they came over, right? It's just smarter for him business-wise for the time being. Whether or not that will pay off the way he wants it to, who knows? I mean, I think it'll all be dictated by what he's able to do for himself and what kind of relationships he's able to maintain with New Japan Pro Wrestling and ROH. Because as we remember, wrestling, not a real sport.
It's also going to depend on how long he is committed to those companies for.
Sure.
Because, I mean, especially with wrestling, it's like the ship can easily pass you by, whether you had meant to jump on right now or in 5 minutes.
Right. I agree.
Speed along.
Nothing is for certain, and I think if it was, hey, go over to AEW now or sign a 5-year deal with us, the answer would be go to AEW now, right?
Yeah, more than likely he just signed like a year extension.
Yeah.
Or 6 months to a year.
But if he's going to do another year, even another 2 years, that's him saying, okay, here I am. I'm going to bet on myself and hope that by the end of this thing, I'm going to significantly raise my worth when I do go over to AEW. And then I will have the opportunity to be the new guy at this thing that's already running, but I know everybody, right? Like, he'll get all the benefits of being the new guy without all of the shit that fucking sucks about being the new guy.
Right. And then it's on the opposite side of it, he wasn't able to make something in New Japan because, Bullet Club's dead because the Bullet Club left. Then he still has a fallback, so to speak. It's entirely possible that New Japan just is, shits on him by saying, like, yeah, Bullet Club's dead now. We're just not going anywhere with this anymore because everyone's gone.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. A talent like Skrull, I think he's to the point now where he could certainly be suppressed, but in the eyes of the fans, any suppression will not be blamed on him. It will be blamed on the office. So
yeah, definitely.
It is important to kind of move here to talk about some of the reports that we heard this week that were kind of backed up by different interviews and things. WOR reported that CM Punk was Khan's first choice for starting this company before the Bucks, before Cody, before anyone. Now, this is, if you understand the creation of this company, somewhat obvious, but maybe not to everyone who's sort of bought the official line that we've been given about this company. This idea that the Cody and the Bucks thing was happening, and then Tony Khan saw it and said, I can make money off of this, and gave them the money that they needed. It's sort of the opposite of how it actually happened. And we know this because there was an interview with Chris Van Vliet this weekend or this week on YouTube. You can find it pretty easily by just typing in Tony Khan interview. It's about 40 minutes long, and it's worth watching for interested parties, but if you're not really interested in business minutia stuff, it's not terribly interesting. The big takeaways is that Tony is very much the man in charge. He came up with the business plan. He presented it to his father. He just simply isn't very publicized as being the man in charge in the content because he has decided not to be an on-screen presence, which is awesome. Thank God. To have a wrestling option where it's not all about the boss versus this is going to allow them to, through limitation, because they can't tell those stories, tell different stories than WWE, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially how WWE was in the early 90s, mid-80s, early 90s, where Vince, you knew he was the owner of the company, but all he really was a commentator.
Yes. And that's
from there, everybody did their own stories. And then, as we'll talk about a little later, is when Vince got in front of the camera that things started getting worse and weirder. And
very
and they had a
formulaic.
hot period where they could tell that story, and then he's continued to tell that story for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
think it's
great,
great.
especially for the presentation that they're doing, this very sports presentation, right? To keep it between the people in the ring and not make it this whole other thing. Yet you have sort of surrogates for Tony Khan in the EVPs, right? These wrestlers who wield a little bit more power than everybody else. But I think it's great that Tony Khan is like, no, I'm going to run the company. And that's why it's so funny when they sort of lean into, it's inmates running the asylum. Oh, it's WCW 2.0. It's like, no, it's Tony Khan running this with like a bunch of business people we'll never hear about and like money guys and his father's. That was the other big takeaway for me from this is that Chris asked why he thinks AEW will be successful where others have failed. He cites specifically Lucha Underground, specifically TNA and ROH. And Tony Khan's answer was pretty simply resources, that he has vast resources beyond these other dudes, which is like a really not bitchy way of saying my dad has a lot of money. But
But it's also saying my dad has a lot of money. He owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he owns a Premier League team. I can kind of do what I want.
And we own, like he owns media companies that he's involved in. They all, that whole family does. Like, they just have all of these resources. And I would love to think, people know this about me from hosting Podcast Underground for as long as we did. I would love to think that a great creative vision is all that you need to be successful. But it's not in a capitalist society. Like, money and resources are fucking important.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very simple. Like when you have the flat out resources from the sports industry that he has, he's got I just pulled him up on Wikipedia, a literal bachelor's degree in finance, so he knows how to make money and how to sell.
Right.
And then just the other companies that he has with the True Media Networks, which is an engineering firm for sports analytics, that alone is $1 billion industry.
Yeah, dude.
Not counting the American football team or the soccer team that he owns.
Yeah, man. This is very much Tony's baby. He talks about it. He presented the idea to his father. He wrote up the business plan, and his dad was like, this is a great business plan. Let's do this. I'm going to be involved. This interview left me very confident that he can be a legitimate contender. Knowing very little about him before, him sort of being the man in the limo, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will say is I do kind of hope that at the first real event, not Double or Nothing or Fight for the Fallen, but the first real one where it's TV tapings, that he does come out and make a small speech and it's like, this is it, this is go.
Sure. I hope that he is somebody that his presence is not as an on-screen character, but is known and felt, which is great. It is interesting. A lot of the places that they're running are probably places that, again, they just have the resources to be in. Especially in the case of Fight for the Fallen, which is done in a place that they fucking own. Like Daly's place is right next to the Jaguar Stadium, and they fucking own that place. So
this is like a free event for them,
right? It doesn't really matter to them at all. Never mind the fact that it's half the house size of every other place that they've worked, right?
And then it's like, oh yeah, you're giving all the money to the victims of gun violence. It's amazing. And then you sit back and it's like, oh, because you guys fucking own the place, so you don't have to pay for anything.
I mean, they got to pay for some things, but certainly a lot less than they would if they were working at a venue they didn't own and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And certainly it doesn't lessen the impact of them giving what they're giving.
No, not at all. It's just kind of funny.
The next piece of news is that The Undertaker and Kurt Angle have been pulled from StarCast 2 at the behest of WWE. This comes to us from Justin Barrasso at ESPN. I guess before I go into this article, Jonathan, I want your general thoughts on this thing that has happened.
I kind of saw it. I saw the writing on the wall when Arn was fired. And then with the thing that happened at WrestleMania, and then after WrestleMania, I knew Taker was going to get pulled because it was clear that because he showed up on Raw, that Vince had talked him into another contract. The Angle one's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, Angle's done.
Right.
So
well, he's got a Legends contract now. You know what I mean?
But still, that one just seemed weird. It seemed stranger than the Taker one. Taker made sense because Vince threw a shit ton of money at him because he needs Taker in Saudi Arabia again. That's it. That's the whole reason.
So funny that WWE bends over backwards to be like, they're not competition. They're not competition, right? And then
you have
they
this
pull
thing
them
that,
from like events that like aren't technically AEW events and like are just fucking appearances. It's so strange. I'm going to read the article. The Undertaker will no longer be appearing at StarCast 2, and neither will Kurt Angle. Per usual in pro wrestling, the card is subject to change. This time, it's due to the burgeoning war between All Elite Wrestling and World Wrestling Entertainment. With the first battle centered around StarCast. StarCast is the wrestling convention created by popular podcast host Conrad Thompson, which ran its first event in September in conjunction with All In, and is centering its second iteration around AEW's Double or Nothing show in Las Vegas next month. Though it is not directly affiliated with any promotion, StarCast 2 does feature many of AEW's stars. The featured talent at StarCast is still overflowing with legends, but it is a blow to lose The Undertaker, especially after announcing he would be part of the event. The Undertaker was officially booked, and a deposit was made before an announcement was made on February 14th for his StarCast meet and greet. The response was overwhelmingly positive, except at the WWE offices in Stamford, Connecticut. The announcement went wide and viral, says Thompson. Quote, I was told it has gotten the attention and that Vince McMahon texted The Undertaker about the appearance. Taker's representation, which is a company called Get Engaged, called to tell me WWE says he can't do it. Ultimately, Get Engaged returned the deposit to Thompson.
So before we keep going, so he did that convention in Liverpool this weekend.
Yeah.
Taker did. And I believe he was paid $25K an hour. So that right there tells you how much money Vince threw at Taker to not do this.
Ugh. Jesus.
Because
man.
if it was the same rate for $25K an hour, 8 hours a day for 3 days? That's a lot of money.
An event like that,
Plus,
too.
Every minute, all the money you get from the autographs and the photo ops and the merch,
An event like that, too, I don't even know that he needs to be The Undertaker. You know what I mean?
No.
I feel like he could write Mark Calloway, right?
And everyone would be lined up. Yeah.
But hey, I don't know, man. I want to talk more about this, but I want to get to the end of the article first. Quote, I had a friend discuss the situation with Vince McMahon, and I was assured that the heat wasn't on me or my event, but rather that The Undertaker shouldn't be doing personal appearances outside of WWE, said Thompson.
Yeah,
Quote,
okay.
Quote, I was assured that damages would be covered, a suitable replacement offered, or some sort of compromise to make everyone happy, end quote. Replacing The Undertaker is an impossible task, but that has not stopped Thompson from making an attempt. Quote, I suggested Vince McMahon, Hunter, or Stephanie McMahon. That's going to be a fucking joke.
Yeah, it
Said-
was just like that joke that, John Oliver had.
Right, said Thompson. Quote, I said I would donate 100% of proceeds to Connor's cure and match the donation personally, which would turn a negative into a positive for everyone involved, end quote. Now he's just teeing off, dude.
I mean, and on that point, I mean, he's not wrong at all. That it's true. I mean, if he was going to do that, I mean, that's a lot of money donated to charity.
Yeah. But,
especially WWE's own charity.
But he knows what the rest of us knows, which is that
that's
they're
never
not
gonna fucking
actually
happen.
interested in fucking charity at all.
Oh,
it's
God, no.
literally just a publicity stunt.
Tax write-off, buddy.
Right. Thompson was informed that McMahon would not allow any main roster replacements, so he set his sights on Shawn Michaels. Michaels was originally set to be booked for the event, but backed out before signing because of the close proximity of StarCast and AEW. Michaels doesn't want to be anywhere near it.
No, because he's got a good gig at NXT. He doesn't want to piss Triple H off.
Oh, yeah, man. The new plan initially was to have Michaels replace The Undertaker and then team with Scott Hall to provide commentary, followed up with a photo op for the 25th anniversary of their WrestleMania X ladder match for the Intercontinental title. Kind of a cool experience idea, but also...
Not as cool as Undertaker, but still cool.
Sure. Thompson has yet to hear back on an official word about booking Michaels. In March, WWE released its own video of Michaels and Hall discussing their legendary ladder match on the WWE Network. That means this isn't happening.
Pretty much, yeah. Just play. You could just, rent the Hall out and just play the DVD.
I asked, quote, I asked to keep Kurt Angle and announce Shawn Michaels as a replacement for The Undertaker, said Thompson. I offered to book everyone through the office. I wanted to play by the rules, and I felt like I already had, since each of these guys were actively marketing themselves for outside appearances via booking agents or their own social media. I have checked in daily for a week now, and nothing is changing, end quote. Thompson is not the only one who had a booking with The Undertaker suddenly change. Kenny McIntosh's UK-based Inside the Ropes has been promoting Rise of the Taker, which is different from Rise of the Skywalker, I guess, for the end of April, and a multi-city tour was sold out. The idea behind the event was for a Q&A with The Undertaker, along with a meet and greet, pictures, and autographs. But McIntosh recently announced that The Undertaker will no longer be allowed to do the Q&A and would instead be replaced by Mick Foley. But The Undertaker was able to do the meet and greet?
He was able to do this one specific event in Liverpool. I don't think he was able to do anything else.
Fucking weird, dude. And that was probably just due to WWE not wanting to pay him out of...
It was that, and also from the art thing I read on... I can't remember where it was. Pulled it off Reddit, but it was basically the Undertaker's like... He just put his foot down and said, I'm doing this. I've already committed to it. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I would be fucking pissed if I was him, dude. But, gotta get that Saudi blood money. The Undertaker will still be signing autographs and meeting fans at Inside the Ropes event, while he won't be appearing at all at StarCast. The Undertaker and Kurt Angle both signed new WWE contracts, and WWE is exercising its right to withhold talent from any events deemed not in the company's best interest, which sounds like something you could totally do with an independent contractor, am I right?
Yeah, that's totally legal.
But Thompson, who booked and announced both talents for StarCast, has a legitimate gripe that neither will be appearing. He says, and quote, I had an agreement in place with talent, said Thompson. Without exception, I dealt directly with the talent or their management. They set their terms. I complied. First-class travel accommodations were made and marketing was done. Now, thanks to the influence of WWE, the performers are missing out on a substantial income and the fans are being punished. With or without replacements from WWE, Thompson still expects StarCast to be a success. Yeah, he's got a point here. It's a little histrionic, but the point still stands that, There's absolutely no reason why these guys appearing at this event that's tied to AEW when the event is all about talking about how great they are and giving fans a chance to basically grovel at these guys' feet in any way is a disservice to their legacy, which, by the way, is the only thing that WWE is interested in with these performers. So,
and even more so when you look at the people who are still on the guest list for StarCast and who was there last year, that they don't give a shit about them.
right,
That's fine.
Ric Flair, right? Like, fuck it.
Well, like Flair, and I know. NWO guys are there. There's a whole lot of people going to be there who should, if WWE gave a shit about, as they said, maintaining their legacy and the blah, 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 and, keeping these guys protected and all this shit.
I almost understand The Undertaker. Kurt Angle makes no fucking sense to me.
Undertaker,
Kurt Angle? What do you
yeah,
give a fuck? He wrestled for TNA for 15 years or whatever,
Yeah.
man. Like,
and that's the thing. It's like Undertaker makes sense. He is active. He's still actively in the ring. Makes sense. He shouldn't be in the ring, but he is.
right.
Angle, you've been promoting for the past 6 months. He's retired. He had this shitty match at WrestleMania. He's retired. Let him walk away and make some money.
Yeah. That I completely don't understand that.
Overall, this whole thing is just, it stinks of Vince having a temper tantrum. Because it's like, you can't have my biggest star and take him away and have him meet the people. We can't have that. He has to do that at WrestleMania Access.
Well, the fact that his biggest star is a
is
65-year-old man is fucking horrible, but okay.
Well, he can't tell Cena or The Rock what to do anymore.
Sure. Right,
Because
that would be like
those two
him
guys
being like...
can literally just go make their own paychecks without Vince, whereas The Undertaker, he's not going to go be an actor.
Yeah, and I guess that's what it comes down to, right? Because Vince couldn't be like Cena, you can't be in blockers because it affects your WWE image, right? Like, he was like, no, fuck you, I'm going to go do these movies. I don't work for you right now.
Right.
Or if I do, it's in a much smaller capacity than I ever have before. I'm going to go and do this shit.
And, The Rock's doing the same thing.
Right. The last part of the article, end quote, I'm continuing my search for rare meet and greets and unique experiences for StarCast, said Thompson. We have announced a very rare appearance from Tatsumi Fujinami, and we're working on another Japanese legend. We've got at least a couple of more surprise names for that fans may not see coming in the next several days. And I'm most proud of the roast of Ric Flair, which is going to be extremely big. I don't think it's going to be as big as he's saying, and also, like, I don't understand why he's part of that.
Conrad,
that seems like
dude.
something he could have booked at any time, considering he's literally related to the man by marriage.
Yeah, but it's fucking Conrad. He's got to suck Rick's dick at every chance he can get. And that's this thing, that whole roast is going to be such a jerk fest. Yeah. It's not going to be funny because you can't say anything mean about Rick. He's my best friend.
Well, I don't even think it's beyond that. It's like the only things that are funny about Rick, like, aren't mean.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What are the jokes going to be? Like, again, like, oh, Rick, you sure have had sex with a lot of women. It's like, oh, you got him. You know,
yeah.
Right? Light him up, guys. Oh, geez, why you got to be so rough? It's also important to note that Terry Funk has also pulled out of the event due to the death of his wife, which thoughts with him.
Yeah.
Calling me in the middle of this show? Oh,
what the fuck?
We're gonna put this on the air. Hey, what's up, man? You're on the air.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to tell you about how much I cried at Endgame, but I won't if I'm on the
What
air.
a little
well,
bitch.
yeah, don't. We'll talk about that after the show, okay?
You bitch.
All right, well, I'll probably be recording my show.
Oh, well then, fuck you then, you pussy. Why'd you cry at an action movie? Go away, dude.
We'll call you during your show.
Later, bro. An awesome AEW Double or Nothing commemorative poster is out now, available on Pro Wrestling Tees. If you haven't seen it, it's like a Marvel poster, but Double or Nothing. It has been expertly crafted by artist Jonathan Bartlett. I'm sure they'll have one for Fight for the Fallen as well.
I know, but dude, that thing is dope as hell.
A video on the making of this poster can be seen on the Nightmare Family YouTube channel. Yeah, of course, the artist, when given the opportunity to talk about his art, made it seem like it was this big creative mind thing. He's like, oh, these people are over here to symbolize this. It's a Marvel poster, but it's AEW. That said,
Marvel.
It's great. It looks awesome. If I was going to the event, I would definitely pick one up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I hope that they have this same guy doing one for Fight for the Fallen as well, and whatever happens after that, Chicago, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. But it's worth checking out at PWT's. It's a cool image, or looking at the video on the Nightmare Family channel.
I want to see the Fever Dream poster that Kenny drew up for Fighter Fest.
Just a bunch of model stock footage and shit.
Yeah, it'd be great. Before we get to the next thing, there was another announcement for StarCast that kind of came out of nowhere.
Okay.
Dean Malenko will be appearing at StarCast because he is no longer with the company.
That is, I didn't know that he was no longer with WWE, but that's not a super surprising inclusion. I mean, he's part of the class of people that StarCast is all about, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I think he's a great inclusion there, and I hope that they do something interesting with him. They have some stuff freed up because I think Funk was supposed to do some kind of event, right?
Yeah, we talked about that. He could definitely do some really interesting talks with Arn if they can get Arn to speak.
Him and Arn. God, I wish Ray was still independent.
Yeah,
Fuck.
Him and Jericho could do a really good show.
Maybe he'll go on Talk as Jericho. That would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Chris should just wipe everybody else he was going to put on that show. And
it was like me and Dean.
Do an hour with Dean.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've done that before, but either way, it's still going to be a good hour.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. Fuck. Fuck, you have to consider buying that show. The Road to Double or Nothing 14, which, again, came out like an hour ago as of us recording this. The entire episode was a single shot of Cody in front of a black background, simple as fucking can be, but it's so funny that WWE, with all their money, can do something like this, and you'll see them do it with people who aren't great promos so that they have a lot of chances to get the promo right. And it looks slapdash and crappy, and like, why didn't you have them cut it live? Here, they do it on a YouTube channel where they probably did it for fucking nothing. And because Cody is such an exceptional talent,
he did that once.
You don't
maybe
notice.
Twice.
And I wouldn't speculate on how many times he had to do it. I'm sure he rehearsed it. I'm sure he wrote it out. But it's about his delivery. Like no amount of budget or glitz or glam or anything you do camera wise is really gonna cover poor delivery. And Cody's just great, man. Cody's greater than he's given credit for, I think. And if this is the beginning of AEW promos, fuck, man. Because this promo isn't even he spends very little time fucking talking about his brother. He almost kind of takes this whole battle to being about the fight that they're having with WWE.
Yeah, this, while was said to be the promo before of his response to the match announcement, this was literally, hey, we're AEW and we're ready to go to fucking war.
Because clearly WWE feels that way. I mean, that was my biggest takeaway. I know we kind of skipped over it. My biggest takeaway from them pulling fucking Undertaker and Angle from that thing is, it's like, man, it's a bad look for WWE. It's
it really is.
The only thing that they stand to gain is a loss of income for important performers from them. being sort of written out of the history books of people who care about AEW. They should want as much presence as possible at Starrcade. This should be like, Starrcade, take all of our WWE guys and talk about how great WWE is. Because the way that they're doing it now, all they're doing is making AEW seem like something they're afraid of.
And antagonizing their talent.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing.
I don't know why you would do that. This guy is hosting an event you don't have to put any money into, and he's going to pay you for the privilege of using your talent. Just give them to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's not asking for them to wrestle. He's literally putting them in a chair so they can sign autographs and take pictures with people. That's it. So, I mean, you know, thinking of it like that, it makes more sense why we just now got this video.
Yeah.
Because it's very possible that the video that they had originally intended to put up for the response to Dustin got changed, and now Cody's angry, so they rewrote it and redid it.
And that's why Dustin's production on his video was this whole, thing with all these shots and all these sweeps, and Cody's is him in front of a black screen, right?
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to do the promo. I'm going to do the best on my promo. Luckily, I put some line breaks in this week. Cody starts off against the black screen. He says, "I love my brother. I have always loved my brother. When you're a little kid and you're going to the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, and here he comes, tall, blonde, every woman in the place going absolutely nuts for him. I'd say at one point he was my hero." Now, Jonathan, you're from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, the Omni is no longer here. That got demolished in 98, 99, which was replaced by Phillips Arena. But I had been to the Omni before it, got imploded. It was a massive arena. It's where a lot of original WCW and NWA and very early wrestling took place. My dad went to the Omni many times to see many, many matches when he was growing up.
Built for basketball, built for hockey.
It was built for the Atlanta Hawks. It was built for basketball, probably hockey as well, because we had a hockey team at one point. Well, we had two actually, but we're not going there. Funnily enough, so the night after I was born, my dad was at the Omni seeing a wrestling match. I don't remember who it was, but it was a really funny. My mom has told me the story my whole life. It's like, yeah, your dad left me right after you were born because your uncle bought him tickets to the wrestling match for his birthday, and they just left me.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. Fun times, man.
Moving on, he says, there's this regular jilted and lazy trope commentators in wrestling will use. You'll hear them say the prodigal son. And I have to wonder, I'm curious, who out there listening actually understands the morals and implications in Luke 15:11 and that parable? There's two brothers. One does everything right. One works very hard and tries to keep his family whole. The other goes abroad, whores about, makes every conceivable wrong choice you could possibly make. But it's the first brother who is equally in the wrong because he has an expectancy from his father for all the good deeds, and none of it matters. The father loved them the same. I've sat on enough couches telling my story to know which brother I am. I'm good with that. I love this line. I've sat on enough couches telling my story to know which brother I am. I'm good with that. That he says he's one of them, but he doesn't tell us which one he is. But it can be assumed that he is painting himself here as the good brother, who perhaps presumed that there was a great reward for him that wouldn't be there. The notion of brother versus brother, of natural versus nightmare, it's all very marketable. It's all very romantic, albeit not very accurate. What's accurate is that this match is generation versus generation. I am not here to kill Dustin Rhodes. I am here to kill the Attitude Era, which is where I went, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was the first statement of, fuck your bullshit, I'm coming for blood.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. He says, my entire lot, my whole class of peers has been compared to these gilded late 90s through early 2000s for more than a decade, and it's an utter sham. Sure, you paved the roads for us, but gosh, you set the speed markers at 35 because you were terrified of any of us putting our fucking foot down on the pedal, which is like, whoa.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking nuts.
You know, when you hear all these old guys like, oh, slow down, you know,
You're going
get
too
the emotion
fast.
into it. It's like, fuck you. You're just pissed because you can't do what they do.
Stop
you
doing
old
all
fuck.
that flippy shit.
Right. It's
And-
so. He just gets right to the fucking heart with this promo, man.
He does, man. And then I mean, you know that the I'm here to kill the Attitude Era. That, I mean, it has a lot of meanings right there. It's like, A, fuck you, Vince, I'm coming for you. But B is like, you know, Goldust was a big part of the Attitude Era.
Yeah. And he comes back to over and over again through the promo as we're going to hear this sort of, he's so over this obsession with the past. And this is the first time that a promo from Cody, because I have been sitting here honestly like, I feel like there's too much obsession with the past in AEW with their connection to StarCast and with them talking, oh, it wants to be a very sports-oriented product. Here, no, he's saying like, WWE's obsession with this one like 6 to 7 year period in their history is sick and
It
really
really
needs to be
is.
put out to pasture.
And it's very odd because they just look at the Attitude Era for everything. They don't look at like the Monday Night Wars or, you know, the building of the company from the territories and up. It's specifically the Attitude Era. That's what made us. That's what built us. That's everything that made WWE was this small period of time, not the previous 30 years.
Right. Cody continues, you mean to tell me some pissant bodybuilder, funny jab at Triple H, making every match a no DQ, meandering around the crowd, throwing the jib cam at his opponent, compares with a Kenny Okada match?
Oh, I thought he was talking about Vince on that one, but
taking the... Dude, a
It's
pissant
both.
bodybuilder making every match a no DQ, that's literally like in the dictionary under Triple H's name.
Fair enough. But I mean, you could go both. But yeah.
He continues, or some bra and panties spectacular matchup with the women. What the women did last September 1st. Which
That part was a
I don't
little
think
weak, but-
I don't think anyone's arguing that a bra and panties match matches up with what any women are doing these days. But sure, I guess I'll take it. This is the line though, or even Dwayne, as electric as it was, Ryman and Raisin. Was it really any better than what Punk said sitting on that stage? Wow, that they bring this into this, dude. Makes me think that they maybe have another line here. Not another line here, but that maybe there's a little more to that. But maybe that's just hopeful me.
It's just hopeful, but man, like that you're gonna bring that up is so ballsy.
He says, listen, I am the least Rhodes of the Rhodes, but they gave me a pair of boots and I got the basics. When you do something to death, when you ride something to death, that's literally what happens. When the animal can't go anymore and it falls out on the trail and you can feel the tension in its eyes, in its fluttered breaths of panic, and it knows it's going to die and it wants to die, you don't just leave it because you love it. You pull from the hip, you roll your fingers on the steel of the chamber, you pull the hammer back, you do not anticipate the recoil, and you blow it away. Like I said, I love my brother. And that's the end of the thing. Man, just unbelievable. And it really lends credence. I mean, we know from Cody having said it that he's allowed to use the Rhodes name, but just doesn't because he doesn't want to. This all seems connected to this idea that he has, this disdain that he has for the history of pro wrestling being repeated and repeated and repeated. He wants to create something new, and he's definitely in the perfect place and position to do that. And I love that they're coming out and saying that that's what this is about creating new stories and new characters. And everybody knows that he's Cody Rhodes, right? He can't get away from that. But if on every poster he can make it so it just says Cody, then when it comes to the time when someone can be like, oh, you only made it because you're a Rhodes, he can be like, no, motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, right when he came out of WWE, he was literally not allowed to use the name.
Sure.
That, we had some very famous promos when he did TNA where he said, my name is Cody, and then moved the microphone away and said Rhodes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he has made himself his own identity outside of being Dusty's son or Dustin's brother. He is Cody. He's done his own thing. He's made himself he's made himself over more times since he's left WWE than any time other. He started out hitting New Japan with this, suave, fuck you, I'm a businessman kind of thing, making fun of all of his previous gimmicks. Mm-hmm. And he's turned that into this bleach blonde motherfucker business guy who's a CEO of a company. He's done everything he's wanted to do outside of the company. He was the ROH world champion. He made himself a fucking ring. He's been New Japan champion, and now he's doing his own thing. Him and two of his best friends sold out an arena for an indie show. Yeah, he doesn't have to put up with anybody or anything of saying that, oh yeah, you're doing this because you're Dusty's son. No, this is the biggest fuck you promo I've ever seen. This is better than Punk's pipe bomb.
Those aren't my words. But what I will say is, well, first, it makes this match a Double or Nothing kind of an open and shut case.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's no way Dustin's going over after this promo.
No, God.
But it also, I love that they've made it, already just by announcing this match, you have this sort of idea of it being Cody sort of removing the baggage that's around his shoulders, right? And with this, you're almost making Cody a surrogate and allowing him to remove the baggage from everybody else so that we can all move forward in pro wrestling. And to put that on a match, it had better be fucking good.
Yeah, you're damn right.
or he gets in that ring and he just fucking beats Goldust unconscious within an inch of his life, and they have to call the match. Just...
little column A, little column B. It's gonna be a good match no matter what. But now the stakes are just so high now.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Which, speaking of Double or Nothing, there was a match that I don't think we've talked about. This semi got announced. SoCal Uncensored versus SEMA and two mystery partners.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it because it was kind of sort of slid in on the sly when they signed Shima. So, but yeah, it should be cool. I do not know who the mystery partners will be. I assume it'll be sort of two Japanese competitors that he's bringing in.
Or one of the random tag teams that they've announced in the past few weeks.
Sure. It could be Best Friends. It could be a number of different tag teams that they brought in. Private Party, of course, who's been on to the event. It might be the Librarians. Who knows?
That'd be weird.
But I'm sure it'll be a decent match. SCU is good. They're fine. And I think whoever they have a match with Shima will be a strong trios match. But it's not... It's not anything that would have sold me on the event if I wasn't already going, which I don't think they have a lot of those anyway. I think if you're not going for the Bucks versus the Lucha Bros and Cody versus Dustin, then you're probably
what the fuck
going.
Are you? Yeah, what are you going for?
Right. It's kind of a 2-match show,
yeah.
But there are other matches on the show that will be good. I just don't think they're system sellers by any means.
So my thing is like, come on, we're about a month out now. I was like, tell me how much this thing's gonna be.
I don't really mind so much. Tell me how much this thing is going to be. Just confirm that it's going to be on the Fight app, and that's all I need to
just somewhere.
Do. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to have to go to cable. I don't have cable hookup at my house. Like, I don't want to have to go through that.
You think that? I don't think they're going to go pay-per-view.
I don't either. I think that's
wicked
backwards. But
it'll be a streaming service, but I don't think it'll be pay-per-view.
Yeah, $40, $60. Even if they go low like ROH and do like a 25, I don't really care. I do think that the $40 to $60 range is high premium. I think they can sell plenty at that range. But like I went on this week to see what Rebellion would cost because I thought that the card for that was fine enough. LAX versus Lucha Bros and
Cage versus Impact.
Cage versus Johnny Mundo and Jordan Grace versus Taya. I think they're having a match, and I was like, that seems like a pretty good card. Went and looked it up, $40. I'm like, not for Impact, man. I'm not paying $40 for Impact. 25, I probably would have done it, but
especially since all of Impact's on Twitch.
Yeah. Well, that one isn't, but yes. I couldn't bring myself to do that. So
yeah, but I mean that's what I'm saying.
Double or nothing. I think they could move at that price and be fine.
When your whole product is on a free streaming service. And then you're going to be like, yeah, $40, buddy, for that pay-per-view.
$40 is a lot for them.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a lot for Double or Nothing.
I would expect that.
I expect 40 to 60, but I don't think that's necessarily too much of a price, and I'm not really worried about what it's going to cost. I'm just worried about like, is it going to be on the fight? Am I gonna have to jump through some hoops to get it somewhere else? For all we know, it's fucking free on YouTube, right? But
I hope they don't do that. The YouTube won't be able to handle that,
or Twitch or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, that'd be.
You have to wonder what's their mission here? Is their mission to get some pay-per-view buys in, or are they even really worried about money this far into building a company like this with the resources that they have? Or are they just going to go, fuck it? The idea is put it in front of as many people as we can and be like, look, we had 5 million people streaming this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's going to be pay-per-view at all, but I think it probably will be. All In was, so...
I think All In was pay-per-view, but it was also on like the Fight app, wasn't it?
Sure. Yes.
I know they're using a lot. I've heard they're using a lot of ROH's infrastructure, so maybe it'll be on that network. I don't see that happening, but I could see them, piggybacking off of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I need to know how I can watch this. I want to watch this. I prefer to watch it live. I'll watch it the next day if I have to, but I would really rather watch this live.
Yeah, I don't really care about the price so much because I'm comfortable with the range that it's probably going to be in. It's more just like, tell me how I'm going to watch it, please.
Yeah.
And but they will. It's just they're taking their time. I'm sure there will be a road to Double or Nothing that's all about how you can watch the show and who's offering it where and all that shit, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I just wish it was soon.
Yeah, agreed. Guys, I mean, we're getting down to the wire here,
which is so exciting. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us on Seeing the Elite in AEW podcast week after week after week. We have been astonished by all of the feedback. Go to your favorite service. Give us 5 stars. Give us a review. Do anything you can to help the show. It's literally melting our icy hearts every time we see somebody reach out to the show. And it's been just a wild month or so that we've been doing this show. Now 6 episodes in, and the numbers for us are astounding. And the people who have reached out and said such wonderful things, thank you. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite if you want to stay up to date with new episodes, or most importantly, subscribe on your favorite podcast service. Join us and talk about AEW. Become a part of our community, tinyurl.com/AEW pod. To join our Discord, tinyurl.com/AEW pod. Some of our close friends who listen to the show, you need to come in and hang out with us there where we can talk about wrestling with you. And everybody who's been enjoying the show. That's about it for us this week. Jonathan, do you have more to offer these people before we go?
No, and I do not. Just come see us at Fight for the Fallen if you're going, because, we'd like to meet some people.
See Endgame before you get spoiled, because I swear to
Dude,
God,
it's happening. I mean,
if we get to by next Monday, all bets are off, and there might be a stray reference. I've given you 2 weekends to see the movie and an entire week. Go and fucking see the film. Don't sit back and be like, "Oh, don't spoil it for me." You've been given enough time. Go and see the movie.
yeah, I mean, even like my friends and I, we were talking after we saw the movie because we were just hanging out, and I like had to stop them from talking about the movie because they were like, "Oh, do you remember this part?" And I'm like, "We're in public. You're gonna make someone mad."
I'm telling you right now, if we get past the second weekend and you still haven't seen it, that's on your ass. I'm not waiting around for anybody else after that, man. Come on. Go see. If you cared, you would go see the movie in the first 2 weekends.
I read an article the other day yesterday as we were coming out of the movie theater about a guy in like Thailand or something. Walked out of the theater, started yelling spoilers, got the shit beat out of him. Cops came and everything, and then the cops were like, "Yeah, you deserve this. There will be no charges pressed."
We're going to end on that. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Seeing the Elite. For my friend Jonathan and myself, thank you so much. And go out and change the world.